One of the other problems that we have as we design new solutions or try to modernize applications or even net new systems that we build is getting extremely talented technical solution architects or even product people coming up with ideas to really be able to communicate that idea to really, what am I building? What are all the components that I need to get there? What business problem am I solving by doing it? We've seen a lot of problems where they know where they want to get to, and in their mind, they've got the steps to get there. But making a picture or designing diagrams or documents is a skill that IT is missing. And have you seen those types of problems, and how have we tried to solve those?
Well, yeah, being a good architect is being able to whiteboard, efficiently, right? We all look at architects on more than one occasion. I know I do, having been one for a while. Architect, it means you whiteboard, you draw boxes, you draw pretty pictures. Well, yeah, but it's also something I can point to start the conversation, to spark a conversation around the thing that we're looking to actually build. So, as much as we might tease architects a little bit, as they sit in their ivory tower, the idea of being able to convey, and I think a picture is a great way of doing that, being able to convey the solution or the idea of a solution that we're looking to build, and make sure we got agreement across the teams from product to business to technology.
Do you have different conversations as you want to talk to the business? The higher level diagram, the more about how consumers will use it versus down when you get to the developers and try to have those conversations?
Yeah. I may start with a couple of different pictures based on the audience, but I'm basically sharing the same or similar concepts. Some of that may be at different levels of detail. So it's still the same idea of the solution, higher level, lower level, granular levels. For the different audiences, I want to make sure nobody's confused by all the moving parts in a picture, and that the audience gets it once we walk away. Because to set expectations around, yes, we have agreement on this is what we're building, I want to make sure we're speaking specifically to those different areas, product, business, IT, and making sure that all of them agree, all of them understand the concept, and we can all point back to something, the picture, or with supporting documentation potentially, and say, yeah, that's what we agreed to.
But how do you make sure that the story you're telling, everyone understands what you're trying to do, right? Because a lot of times I've seen someone has a vision for what they want to build, they're sharing it, and it seems like everyone in the room understands, but the reality is when everyone goes off to do their thing and then you reconvene, you start to see that, okay, Bill didn't understand, Fred didn't understand, Nancy didn't understand, and then you start to get in that vicious loop where it's not really clear what we're doing. You're not on the same page.
And do you think that was because they didn't understand the picture, or because they had they kind of wanted to go a different way?
I think I think a lot of times it's because they don't have a firm grasp on the problem that they're trying to solve, right? I mean, the problem itself is large, and they can only see part of the problem. They can't back away and see the complete picture.
That has to be one of those very upfront things to understand. Here is the problem, and have everybody understand the problem prior to any pictures or talking of the solution. We have to understand the problem and what that is. It requires a solution. If we don't have that, there's no reason to continue talking at all. My picture, any picture that's produced or any design concept has to relate back to the problem. So if we don't have an understanding of the problem, then we can't really progress beyond that point.
And I think that's a lot of the problems of the pictures don't necessarily include the business side of it. Like, how is a user going to use this system? They'll enter data here, it'll go here, it'll get in the backend systems, and they'll get a result this way. Yeah. So that the business people, Nancy, Fred, whoever, get the whole picture, and then use the same picture to talk to the technical people about this is going to be your inside data. This can be your input data. This is what you need to do with it. This is what you need to return, so that everybody sort of agrees and gets those contracts about who owns what data along the way. Because it does happen a lot where the developers assume, well, of course the business is going to give me a 10-digit phone number, and the business assumes I'm going to give you a 7-digit phone number, whatever. And those just little misses can make a huge difference for when you're halfway down the development. Like, well, I didn't plan for that. It wasn't in the picture.
Well, so again, the picture's a start.
Right.
It sparks the conversation. And it's only based on what we know at the time, right? So that
Phone number may have been a bad example because it was very specific.
It's
GBI.
very granular.
I know, but
Yes.
but it's really the things where I've seen the misses is people don't get the ecosystem of what the transaction of the data will be. They
Yeah.
make assumptions about who's going to do various pieces.
Well, and I'd say, the conversation is iterative. It doesn't end after the first one. You continually have it, and things are updated or improved based on information as it becomes known. The picture, if you will, becomes enhanced based on that additional information as well. But it doesn't replace these architectural designs or pictures are not meant to replace any more granular design documentation that usually goes along with app development. It's really just to make sure we have something that brings all the different parties, the product, the business, the tech folks, into the same conversation, and we can point to something common, a picture that everybody can kind of rally around and say, yeah, that's it. Now, as we start the planning process, the development process, once we get into some of those things, we get more information. And whether it's the picture that stays the same because it's conceptual in large part, or it's the supporting documentation that has to change because it's either requirements or some tax backs or whatever it is that we agreed to produce, those things have to change. The conversation doesn't remain stale after the first conversation. We should be continually evolving and continually improving.
But how do you bridge the gap? Because the biggest thing I've seen is developers look at the PBIs. The PBI says make the button blue. And there's a picture over here that shows a blue button. But how do you keep those two things together so that developers don't lose the big picture?
I think you have to have constant show and tell, right? So, as you're building things, the team needs to present what they're building back to the business to confirm that, yes, we get it, and yes, we're still on the right track. Because, some other teams, they do that well, and those projects generally seem to get better outcomes. And sometimes they want to go off, disappear for a few months, create it, build it, voila, we're ready to go production, we're done. And as you start to put that thing out there and people take a look at it, they'll scratch their head, I didn't mean blue, I meant, blue-green. And those things that aren't quite right because no one's seen it while it was being built.
And that's not really a development or an agile or a waterfall type of thing. That's just about keeping the loop between the business and the product and developers moving along. Agile certainly has some of those planned things for it, but you can have it in whatever development methodology you have. It's about sharing what you have and making sure that everybody stays on board, and product didn't go and change the requirements for you and not communicate it to it.
Yeah, a shortened feedback loop. A feedback loop, first at all, is a good thing, but a short feedback loop where you can make small adjustments versus having to make major adjustments down the road because your feedback loop has been extended is really important. You need that constant feedback, and I think the demos really help as part of sprint or sprint planning. Maybe at the end of each sprint, if you have something to demo, you share it with product and the business and have them weigh in on it. And then maybe you have to take some of that feedback into your subsequent sprints to be able to accommodate that feedback. But in the end, it's a much better process than having to do it all when you're on the cusp of going to production.
So if we circle back to the people side of it, how do we develop people to be able to draw those pictures, to be able to communicate their technical solutions to a picture that they can explain to the business or the product people?
Well, if you're looking at an architect, and I know we all have different definitions for what an architect is, be it solution architect or application architect or whatever, my expectation would be they already come in with some degree, some knowledge of or experience of drawing these pictures, or having to put something in place. And the thing that we can do as from a leadership perspective is make sure that that ability is to do things like that is enhanced. Are you putting out good artifacts to be able to spark the conversation? Have you had conversations in the past with these different areas of the company, or has it only been with the IT folks? Have you spoken to product or business before about this stuff? And if not, that's what we got to train them up on and expose them to that, because I think some form of immersion or experiential practice is key to having people not just hear the concepts, but actually understand, live, and learn as well.
Well, I think it's really important that those types of pictures are not about whether I'm going to use React or C# or whatever technology there is.
Right.
What am I building that's going to make the business better? that's going to make the client experience better, that's going to solve some large business risk to it. The technology comes later. And I think they get too hung up on what am I going to do technically, as opposed to how am I going to get the business fixed down into my thing.
Yeah, I think, I'm sorry, Lysander. I think a big part of that is, from an architecture perspective, we have to understand we're not thinking too far down the road. We're starting with the conceptual. We understand the problem. We hear the problem. We all agree what the problem is. And now we start designing or architecting solution to solve that problem. We want to be careful so that not only the architects, but the team around the architects aren't looking too far down the road and they started already solutioning or implementing in their minds. I'm going to start using Angular. I'm going to use AWS. I'm going to use a NoSQL backend. Putting the cart before the horse a little bit. And you need to back that up and come up with that good design and design patterns around. This is the solution. This is how I think I should implement it. And now you can start working towards fingers on keyboard and start banging out code. But we get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, but I think you also have to look at the history and culture of the business, right? Because if they're not used to doing those things, you may have to slow everyone down even more to implement some of those practices so that you can start to gain the benefits from doing that work. Because a lot of places, they'll have an idea and they want to just jump into coding and they're off to the races without really thinking about what it is they're going to wind up with.
Sure. Look at the challenges we had in trying to get architecture, time, and resources carved out within a particular project. We go from requirements to development like that, and we're missing key pieces of design.
Well, and do we propagate by having, in our current team, the project we're working on, we blur the line between architect and lead developer. And does that make the problem worse? Should the architects be, more like you and me where we're not as skilled? So that
I think it depends. I think it depends on the two people you have in those roles, right? Because if the two people doing those roles understand what their responsibilities are, they'll figure it out.
Yeah, but it's still such an easy thing for them to start. I'm going to go do a POC on this. I'm going to
right. But if they
with
understand
that.
what they're supposed to be doing, they understand the outcome that is needed, and they figure it out. And that's where, as leadership, you need to watch that to make sure that that's what's happening. If it's not happening, then you've got to make some adjustments.
They can dig a hole pretty fast.
Yeah. Right. But I think Lysander nailed it with leadership and making sure that we keep a watchful eye on how that work is progressing. So I like the idea of having some clear boundaries around responsibilities for the different roles, right? An architect is sometimes asked to wear or forced to wear multiple hats, but we got to limit the amount of hats that they have to wear and the frequency by which they have to wear them.
Right.
Right. And if you build your team, construct your team in such a way that the people in charge, all the way down through the people actually building the code are operating, making sure that the architect has somebody to go to, be it a dev lead of some kind, but some person to be able to convey the message around to the development staff. This is what we're going to build, and this is how we're going to build it. And they start building. The architect shouldn't have to go down and become a developer and start wearing a developer hat in addition to, no, you're doing it wrong. This is what I meant by my drawings. And also now wear the dev lead hat. We need to make sure.
Don't forget the product hat, because, do they become the advocate for their design, or should their design continue to evolve as product changes the requirements? Because we run into that problem too.
Yeah, that's a good point, because from the product perspective and the solution that we might have all agreed to on day one, we may have less agreement around what is what's formulating by month one or month two of the product or of the process. And the architect a lot of times has to be the one to make sure that the design is consistent and supportive of what the product team is asking for, as well as often wear the hat of pushing back sometimes and say, this is scope creep. This is not part of solving that problem that we identified early on. This is just additional stuff, bells and whistles that aren't necessary to solve that problem.